Hey everybody, I may not be childish, but I'm a little bit crazy, that's for sure. Hey, I want to introduce you to my friend. I know we've already actually had him in another video. His name's Bear Belly. All his friends call him Bell. You can call him Bear too, but yep, it's Bear Belly. He's a happy guy, unlike me. His life is just one big happy time. So we're going to look at firefighting from a slightly different angle. You know why people like being firefighters? It's because they're heroes. But they're also adrenaline junkies as well. They like that pressure, that excitement, the fear that goes along with it. In business and in really any situation where problems arise, there are people that enjoy firefighting, not actually putting out a hot burning fire, but putting out a situation that's, we'll say, like a peacekeeper. That's a person that's a firefighter. They like, putting out fires. They like solving problems and being the hero and doing what other people aren't willing to do. And because some people look at putting out fires as very risky, maybe the potential for failure. However, other people, and even myself, when I look at a fire, it's like, I can't make it any worse. So, anything I do is better than what's there right now. So if I can come up with a better process, if I can design a better tool, if I can help a group of people work together better, well, that's all good. And if they're at a point where everything's falling apart and I can't make it any worse. In fact, one of the jobs when I was applying for it, I looked at it, and even though I had never done anything like it before, I looked at how messed up things were, and I said, well, I can't make it any worse. But it's great to be a firefighter, but how about the people who do their job right so that there's never a reason for a problem, so that there's never a reason for somebody to have to come in and put out a fire to solve a problem? How about if the person does their job right to start with, which means they never have an issue with where the firefighter is necessary. Let's say somebody being let's say somebody takes and designs a house that just absolutely will not catch on fire. Let's say an electrician does his job so well that no matter how long that building sits there, it'll never have a problem. There'll never be a failure. There'll never be an electrical fire. There'll never be a need for a firefighter. What kind of recognition do people like that get? They don't get any. One of the places I worked, this one engineer was they would come to him whenever they had a problem, whenever things were all screwed up. And he'd get in there and the reason they'd come to him is because he would spend day and night working on the problem. And he would, sooner or later, usually later, would come up with a solution. There was a couple reasons that they called on him. One, because of his work ethic. Two, because no one else wanted to tackle the problem. Now, was he really the best person for the job? In most cases, no. But he was willing. And that was good enough, because they just would pass it off to him and everybody washed their hands of it. It's his problem now. And I'd say he come up with a solution, but his solutions were never permanent. And constantly he would be going back and refixing the problem. But he would get credit because they were shipping parts. And that's all that mattered to them, even if it was at a loss. Even if, well, of course, if he was working on it, his cost was not shown directly towards the parts. So that helped as well, because he would actually even make the parts. But then I knew, oh, and I'll say one more thing about him, and this is not to say he was a bad person or that they didn't need him. He earned his keep in the company. However, if you ask if he ever had any original ideas, nope. He was never handed a new job. He was handed jobs that were screwed up. And like I said, his fixes weren't complete fixes. I worked for a company like that at another time, where the owners would design a die and the part, after being stamped, wouldn't quite be how it should be dimensionally. And instead of fixing the die, they would create a second operation. A secondary operation is what they call them. And they are considered non-value added, because you should have made it right the first time. The first hit should have made the part right. But they would do that all the time. And if you ever actually did the numbers on that place, they would be technically reworking over 30% of everything they did. So that's all extra cost. So anyway, back to the company where this guy loved to firefight. There was another guy, engineer, and he was terrible to deal with. I mean, he was a stickler for making sure that everything was understood and that he understood what was going on with whatever he was designing and trying to build. He was almost always behind schedule. That part of it he could have done something about. However, when he was done something, you never had to go back and touch it. When they started producing parts, they were production parts, and he really covered his bases, and so there was no firefighting. when he was the one that was responsible for the project. You know how much appreciation he got? None. But the guy that was doing the firefighting, oh, everybody loved him. I mean, he was even just a decent, he was fun to be around because he's always making jokes and things like that. In fact, I don't know how he got away with it, but he should have been hauled into human resources multiple times for sexual harassment. But because he made the joke, it was overlooked. If I would have made a joke like that, no. I'd have been fired. So, when you think about firefighting, think about the people that did their job right so there never was a need for a fire alarm to go off. If the right amount of effort is spent up front and the right thinking, because in fact that's one of the things our government does, and I've heard some people say this, is our government creates a problem and then comes in like the hero and fixes it, or tries to, which maybe short term it looks like they've got it fixed, but long term things get worse. And that's how our country has been going, but that's the way it's going to go. That's the way the world is heading, and it's like anything. Everything starts out new and gets old. It's a new house, and when it gets old, because of somebody being careless, it might go up in flames. And the day will come when no number of firefighters or fire equipment are going to stop the fire from going out. And well, that's life. So anyway, think about the people that do things right the first time and appreciate them. And then Bear Belly back there, he knows what it's like. That's why he's smiling. He was made right the first time. He'll be around for years to come as long as there's somebody to love him. Alright, I'm out of here.